Welcome in, everyone. We are super excited to have you with us for this deep dive today because our mission is to unpack this massive stack of notes we have on the intersection of artificial intelligence and creativity.
Yeah, and it is a fascinating and frankly super controversial topic right now. It really gets at the core of what it means to make something.
Absolutely. So to start, I want you to picture this scene. It is August of 2022. You are walking through the fine arts exhibition at the Colorado State Fair.
Which is, usually a pretty traditional vibe.
Right, totally.
Oh.
The gallery is filled with what you'd expect, right? Landscapes, some nice portraits, still lifes. But then you stop in front of this one piece. It's submitted by an artist named Jason Allen, and the title is Théâtre D'opéra Spatial.
And according to the source material we're looking at, it's the kind of image that just forces you to physically stop in your tracks and step closer.
Yeah, like you can't look away.
Exactly. Just picturing it from the description, it depicts this incredibly sweeping, grand operatic scene.
And the lighting is what really catches the eye, right? Like it's glowing.
Yeah, the whole canvas is just suffused with this luminous golden light. You see these robed figures and their backs are turned to the viewer, right? And they're all gazing out toward this massive circular portal.
Yeah, and through that portal is a literal cosmic vista. It feels simultaneously ancient and futuristic.
Yeah, it's breathtaking, truly.
And the judges clearly felt the exact same way because they handed it first place in the digital art category. They literally gave it the blue ribbon.
Yeah.
But then, and this is where it gets crazy, the other shoe drops.
The big reveal.
Right. Jason Allen steps forward and reveals that he didn't actually paint this piece. Like, not with a brush, not even with a digital stylus. He created it using an AI image generator called Midjourney.
And man, the backlash from the art world was immediate. Just intense, white-hot anger.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading through the reactions in our notes, the collective outrage felt a little bit like watching a magician win a massive high-stakes talent show.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like they accept the giant novelty check and then step up to the microphone to casually reveal that the magic wand actually did all the tricks by itself. The magician just waved it around a bit.
Right, the shock value is definitely there. But if we look past the initial scandal of that specific state fair, the source material points out that Jason Allen's blue ribbon really cracked open a much larger, almost existential question for us.
Yeah, because it's not just one guy at a fair anymore.
No, not at all. We are suddenly confronted with machines that are capable of producing art that wins competitions, or writing music that genuinely moves human beings to tears, and generating stories that keep readers obsessively turning pages.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. And so the core question we're dealing with today is that machine actually being creative? And depending on how we answer that, what does it mean for human creativity going forward?
Because if the wand is doing the magic, we really have to figure out what the magician's actual job is now. And to even begin answering if an AI is creative, we first have to pin down what creativity actually means.
Which, is a debate humans have been having for centuries, long before electricity, let alone neural networks.
Right. But to figure out if the AI is creative, we need a definition. So how do our sources break that down?
Well, philosophers have tried to box it in forever, but if we distill it down to the basic framework from our notes, creativity fundamentally requires producing something that is both novel and valuable.
Novel and valuable.
Okay. Yeah. It has to be something that didn't exist before in that exact form, and it has to possess some kind of worth, whether that's aesthetic, emotional, intellectual, or even just practical worth.
Okay, but if we go by that standard, hasn't AI been doing this for a really long time?
Under that strict technical definition, yes, absolutely. AI systems have been churning out creative work for decades. Computers have been algorithmically composing music since the 1950s.
But wait, I have to push back on that a little bit, because by that definition of novel and valuable, isn't a pocket calculator producing something valuable and novel every time it solves a complex math problem?
I see where you're going with this.
Right. Like, it's a new calculation, it has immense practical worth, but we would never call a calculator an artist. And even with that 1950s computer music, the outputs were basically just clunky mechanical sequences of tones. Nobody was weeping in the concert hall over a 1950s algorithm,
Well, sure. A calculator is executing a deterministic function. It is finding a single, objectively correct answer.
Right, whereas art, doesn't have a single correct answer.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the mechanism of how these modern systems are generating their outputs and the sheer leap in quality that mechanism has produced. We are definitely not in the 1950s anymore. We're dealing with things like diffusion models.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener, because diffusion model sounds like something straight out of a chemistry textbook. What is actually happening under the hood when someone asks an AI to make a painting?
It's actually a pretty wild concept. Imagine a television screen displaying nothing but pure chaotic static, just white noise.
Okay, got it.
A diffusion model is basically an AI that has been trained to look at that static and slowly reverse engineer an image out of it.
Wait, out of nothing, just static.
Just static. It takes your prompt, say a golden operatic space portal, and it systematically removes the digital noise, pixel by pixel, step by step, until that static literally forms the image you asked for.
That is mind-blowing.
Right. It's not pulling from a folder of pre-existing images. It is hallucinating a completely new arrangement of pixels out of total chaos, guided entirely by the math of its training data.
So it's essentially sculpting an image out of a block of digital noise.
Yeah.
And the quality leap is really what's making this impossible to ignore. Because these systems, daily, mid-journey, stable diffusion, they aren't just making generic clip art anymore.
No, not at all.
They are generating images that are basically indistinguishable from human art. They can mimic the exact brushstrokes of Rembrandt or the surrealism of Picasso.
Yeah.
And they do it with this terrifying fidelity.
And that fidelity extends way beyond just the visual arts. The notes detail how large language models, which is the technology behind systems like ChatGPT, they're operating on a very similar leap in complexity.
Yeah, they're not just stringing together pre-written sentences like a chatbot from 10 years ago.
Exactly. They operate using tokens, which you can think of as little chunks of words. And these models have analyzed so much human text that they're basically playing a multi-billion dimensional game of predicting which token should naturally come next to fulfill whatever prompt the user gave them.
And they are doing it so well. Like, they can write poetry that scans perfectly, maintains consistent metaphors throughout the whole thing, and evokes genuine, profound emotional responses from people reading it.
Or look at the AI music generators. They compose full symphonies now, and they match the complex harmonic language and the rhythmic character of human composers flawlessly.
Right. So if the output is this indistinguishable from human art, the debate naturally has to shift. It moves away from what the AI made and focuses entirely on how it made it. Which leads us right into the biggest criticism outlined in the sources.
Yes, the recombination debate.
Right. The argument that AI isn't actually creating anything new at all. It is merely recombining the work of millions of human artists, writers, and musicians.
And it's important to remember where that data comes from. All of that human labor was scraped from the internet and fed into the AI as its training data.
Exactly. Midjourney didn't wake up one day and invent a visual aesthetic. ChatGPT didn't conceptualize a 3-act narrative structure out of thin air. They just ingested those concepts after humans spent thousands of years bleeding over them. The AI is just finding mathematical ways to interpolate between our ideas.
And that word interpolate is really key here. Think of the AI's brain as an unfathomably massive map. It's a high-dimensional space where every single concept, every color, every style has a specific geographic coordinate.
Okay, I'm visualizing a giant map.
Right, so the AI isn't inventing a new city on this map. It's just calculating the mathematical midpoint between the coordinate for, say, Van Gogh's style and the coordinate for a cyberpunk cityscape. And it's showing you what that exact intersection looks like.
Wow.
It's basically a mirror reflecting our collective human creativity back at us, just in novel configurations.
You know, it makes me think of cooking. Like, a human chef develops a revolutionary new dish based on a literal lifetime of physical sensory experience.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Like, they have felt the crunch of a vegetable. They've smelled a spice market in person. They know the sharp bite of salt on their tongue. They have a physical, biological relationship with the medium.
They've lived it.
Exactly. But an AI algorithm, on the other hand, it just mathematically cross-references a million digital recipes to find a highly probable, statistically successful flavor pairing. But the AI has never actually tasted salt.
It has the data but zero sensory memory.
One creates from an intimate understanding of the medium, and the other creates from a database.
But this raises an important question, right? If we look really closely at human creativity, doesn't it operate on a very similar principle of recombination?
What do you mean?
Well, no human creates in a vacuum. every single writer who has ever lived has a style that was shaped by the books they read growing up.
Okay, that's fair.
Musicians absorb the chord progressions of the bands they love, and they mix them with new influences. Human art is fundamentally a process of taking what we've ingested, mixing it in our own internal map, and producing something slightly different.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Because even if the mechanical process of recombination is somewhat similar, mixing old things to make new things, the sources highlight a massive, gaping philosophical divide between a human creating and a machine predicting.
And that divide comes down to lived experience.
Yes. There is this incredibly poignant example in our notes about a poem exploring grief. When a human poet writes about the loss of a loved one, the words on the page are tethered to actual visceral pain. The poet has physically felt the hollow ache in their chest. The words have a biological source.
They mean something real to the person writing them.
Right. But when an AI generates a poem about grief, it is merely mapping the statistical proximity of words related to sadness based on texts written by humans who actually suffered. The AI itself feels nothing, no joy, no sorrow, no mortality.
It organizes the tokens of human emotion without ever actually possessing a heartbeat.
Exactly.
And that creates a really profound tension for the audience. Because does the lack of a soul or the absence of lived experience, does that hollow out the art?
Well, for a significant portion of the art world, the answer is a hard yes. The origin of the piece is inextricably linked to its value.
But there is a counter perspective that asks a pretty uncomfortable question. If you, the reader, cannot tell the difference, if you read that AI-generated poem about grief and you are genuinely moved to tears, does the origin even matter?
Man, that's heavy.
If the emotional impact on the human heart is identical, is the art somehow less real just because a machine made it?
Untangling the philosophical soul of art is one thing, and it's fascinating. But the reality is that the actual outputs of these systems, they aren't waiting around for us to resolve this debate.
No, they definitely are not.
The technology is moving so fast that we are being forced out of the realm of philosophy and directly into harsh economic reality. The disruption isn't hypothetical anymore.
Yeah, the theoretical debates are kind of a luxury compared to the immediate, visceral economic impact outlined in the data.
Our notes list immediate casualties across multiple industries, like stock photo companies are watching their revenue models absolutely collapse.
Oh, completely.
If a marketing firm needs a photo of a diverse team working happily in a sunlit office, they used to have to hire a photographer, rent a space, pay actors, or license a super expensive pre-existing photo.
And now
Someone on their marketing team just prompts an image generator and gets a hyper-specific professional quality image in 12 seconds for literally pennies.
And voice actors are experiencing the exact same thing right now.
Oh yeah. Losing lucrative audiobook and commercial contracts to AI voice synthesis that can clone a human cadence perfectly.
The anxiety over this economic displacement really reached a boiling point in the entertainment industry. In 2023, both the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild engaged in massive historic strikes.
Yeah, that was huge news.
It was. And looking strictly at the demands outlined in our source material, protection from AI displacement wasn't just some fringe issue for them. It was a central pillar of the labor dispute.
It was basically front and center.
Right. The writers and actors were negotiating to establish strict guardrails against studios using AI to generate scripts, or using machine learning to replicate a background actor's digital likeness in perpetuity without giving them ongoing compensation. And obviously, the sources note that this was a deeply complex negotiation for both the unions and the studios, trying to figure out how to integrate or restrict this new tech.
So what does this all mean for the law? Because trying to apply copyright laws that were written in the 20th century to a machine that hallucinates pixels in high-dimensional space, I mean, that seems like a complete nightmare.
Oh, it's a total mess. The legal framework is quite literally being constructed in real time right now through a flurry of these high-stakes lawsuits.
I bet.
The dilemmas strike at the absolute foundation of intellectual property. Like, first of all, who owns an AI-generated output? Currently, the U.S. Copyright Office leans toward the stance that without human authorship, there is no copyright.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the much more contentious issue is the training data itself. Tech companies scraped billions of copyrighted images, articles, and books from the internet to train these models, and they did it completely without the explicit permission of the original creators.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Go back to our human recombination point earlier.
Sure, go for it.
If I am an aspiring human painter, I can walk into a gallery, spend hours studying a copyrighted painting by a living artist, and then go home and paint a completely new piece in a very similar style.
Right.
I don't owe that original artist a dime in royalties. I was just inspired. So why is it illegal for an AI to simply study the data on the internet to learn how lighting and brushstrokes work?
Well, you just articulated the exact defense that AI developers are presenting in court.
No, really?
Yeah. They argue that their models are engaging in a form of machine learning that mirrors human inspiration, that they're analyzing patterns rather than just copying files.
Okay, so what's the counter-argument?
The artists who are organizing against this point out a critical flaw in that comparison, which is scale and mechanization.
Oh.
Right? A human might study a few hundred paintings in a lifetime. These corporations built commercial machines that scraped millions of copyrighted works per second to create a product designed to directly compete with the very artists whose labor they ingested.
That is a massive difference.
They are arguing it's not inspiration at all. It's industrial extraction.
And there's the liability question too, right? Like,
Yeah.
if an AI company trains its model on legally licensed data, but a user intentionally prompts the AI to generate a picture of Mickey Mouse who is committing copyright infringement there.
Exactly. Is it the tool that is capable of generating anything, or the human who directed it to generate something protected?
Courts across multiple international jurisdictions are currently attempting to untangle those exact hypotheticals. And the rulings they hand down over the next few years, they're going to dictate the economics of the creative class for decades.
Will tech companies have to license training data? Will artists have an opt-out mechanism? The rules are entirely unwritten right now.
You know, with the revenue models collapsing and the courts totally overwhelmed, it is so easy to read through these notes and feel a profound sense of impending doom.
Yeah, it can feel pretty bleak.
Like human creativity is just being methodically boxed out by an algorithm. But the final section of our sources actually points toward a very different trajectory. We aren't necessarily looking at total replacement, but rather the messy birth of a new era of collaboration.
Yeah, the consensus among a lot of experts navigating the space is that AI is fundamentally redefining what the creative process looks like, rather than just eliminating the need for the human mind altogether.
It's shifting the baseline.
Exactly. The frontier right now is about pairing human intention with AI capability. The AI becomes this remarkably powerful instrument, but it still requires someone to play it.
The real-world applications in the notes illustrate this perfectly, I think. Think about a filmmaker with a wildly ambitious sci-fi concept, right? Historically, they would need a massive budget and months of labor just to storyboard and pitch the visual world to a studio. But today, they can use AI to rapidly prototype those visual ideas in an afternoon. It gives them the ability to communicate their vision instantly.
Or think about a musician who is stuck on a complex transition in a song. They can use an AI tool to explore 100 different harmonic variations in seconds.
Wow, yeah.
And then they just listen through them to find the one that perfectly serves the emotional arc of their piece. Or a novelist fighting writer's block can ask a language model to generate 5 different weird plot twists just to get the gears turning again.
In every one of those scenarios, the AI is generating the options, but the distinct human choice remains totally central to the process.
Yes. Deciding which direction a story goes, understanding why a specific harmonic shift evokes the right feeling, and determining what the final piece actually means, those are editorial, curatorial decisions. They require lived human experience.
And every major technological shift in the history of art has caused panic before ultimately expanding the boundaries of what was possible.
Which brings us to, honestly, the most perfect historical analogy in our sources: the invention of the camera.
Oh, this is such a good point.
When photography first emerged, there was a genuine, widespread belief that painting was completely dead. I mean, why would anyone spend weeks painting a portrait or a landscape when a machine could capture reality perfectly in a fraction of a second?
But the camera obviously didn't kill painting.
Instead, it liberated it.
Yes. Because painters were no longer burdened with the job of strict realism, they were suddenly free to ask totally new questions about their medium. It pushed human creativity into Impressionism, Cubism, abstract art.
It forced us to figure out what a human could express with paint that a lens could never capture.
And AI is essentially doing that to writing, illustration, and music all at the exact same time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to revisit Jason Allen at the Colorado State Fair.
Right, the guy who started this whole deep dive.
Yeah. The initial outrage was built on this assumption that Allen simply typed a one-sentence prompt, pushed a button that said, "Make art," and let the algorithm do the rest.
Right, like he did no work.
But digging into the process, Allen actually made thousands of micro-decisions. He spent weeks learning how the model responded to specific vocabulary.
He had to learn the instrument.
Exactly. He generated thousands of variations, altering his prompts to adjust the lighting, the composition, the overall mood. He had to curate the results, selecting the exact outputs that resonated with his vision, and then he meticulously upscaled and refined the final image.
He wasn't acting as a traditional painter at all. He was acting as an art director.
So when people ask who is the true artist here, is it Jason Allen, Midjourney, or the thousands of artists in the training data?
It seems like that question relies on a completely outdated definition of what an artist even is.
It attempts to fit a 21st century workflow into a 19th century vocabulary. It just doesn't work.
So to bring this all home for you listening, the landscape of human expression is undeniably shifting right now. The tools we use to tell our stories are evolving at a breakneck pace, and they're moving significantly faster than our copyright laws, our labor unions, or even our philosophical frameworks can keep up with.
It is a lot to process.
It is. But the one enduring truth highlighted throughout all of our sources today is that despite the changing tools, the irreducibly human need to make meaning and to share that meaning with other people is not going away.
No, not at all.
A machine might be able to generate the words, or the pixels, or the frequencies, but the drive to connect through those mediums remains uniquely ours.
The desire to be understood is something an algorithm just cannot replicate.
You're beautifully said.
But I do want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own. Let's return to that